It looks like USC's National Signing Day #2 started a day early.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holton, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Network. Whether you're watching this show on YouTube or wherever you want to download your podcast, always remember this show is free and never forget how much I appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. USC got another defensive lineman commitment, and it happened a day before the actual National Signing Day. Yep, on Tuesday, the day before, February 7th, which is the National Letter of Intent Day in February, the one that everybody kind of grew up with. USC got defensive lineman. His name is Ratumana Bula Balavu. We're going to call him Mana. Defensive lineman who was originally committed to the University of Washington, and he's now officially flipped to USC. Mana is another one of those we'll call proverbial 3-star hidden gems that the USC recruiting fans like to roll their eyes over because he's not a 4 or 5-star. Well, look, you can't have it both ways, guys. Well, you can. I know you want to have your cake and eat it too, but let's look at it from this point of view. If you have any type of confidence in USC's defensive line coaching tandem of Eric Henderson and Shaun, then you have confidence in their abilities to coach these 3 stars up. Right? Right. We agree. So what I would probably suggest is sit back and let's defer to their trained eyes, okay? Look, this young man was offered by Washington's old staff, who, by the way, that staff is good enough to be the Alabama Crimson Tide's new coaching staff. Nick Saban had to sign off on that. And if Kyle Whittingham recruits these types of players every year, I mean, look, how many times do you hear people complaining about a Utah defensive line? That's right, you don't. So now Mana Bula Balavu is a Trojan. Literally 2 days after he took his official visit, he committed, and he is now part of the 2024 recruiting class for USC. I mentioned a couple of times over the last week or so that USC was hoping to flip one commit, linebacker Jaden Walker from Michigan State. Who knows? By the time you're watching this episode of Locked On USC, Walker's letter of intent might already be inside Heritage Hall. But this was the other guy I was alluding to. And it's obvious, at least to me, that his official visit with USC and the defensive staff had a big time impact. New defensive coordinator Antonlynn shared his vision for USC's defense with Mana, and Mana also got to spend some time with Coach Eric Henderson. This is what he said. The one message that was clear is that they want to go back to becoming an NFL factory. The recent hires, the new defensive coach, Coach Henney at defensive line, the really big pitches between those two is in developing NFL players. They've been around NFL talent. They know what NFL players look like. They know what an NFL draft room looks like. That was a really big pitch, and they put forth, and I see their plans coming to fruition with that. Now, I know some of you have seen that NFL Films video on YouTube, the one where they talk about the #1 college football factory. Yeah, the Trojans were #1. Well, for the time being, USC isn't just about football. We're going to talk about that in another show. USC does have what they do is they do a really good job of selling the school and life after football. So how often have you heard me use the words Trojan family? You hear me say it all the time. Mana spoke with a professor, a professor at USC's business school, the Marshall Business School. And the professor himself offered his example of how the Trojan family network makes you feel at home wherever you are. Quote, seeing the USC family, I was always told about it and seen it in graphics, but meeting the professor at Marshall, he talked about his experience. And he knew the family was out there, but hadn't had his own experiences with the family. It would turn out into something as simple as texting, that he's going to be in some country, and he was hit up by multiple students and alumni that were there too. That experience with the USC family was something I never really talked about before and hadn't heard about it from somebody who wasn't in football, end quote. I apologize. I'm trying to quote verbatim. Sometimes it doesn't roll off the tongue the way it should. So again, you really never know what will resonate with a recruit. Sometimes it's just those little things like that. But he also talked about how Coach Henney is getting a lot of shine from everyone. And look, let's be honest, he deserves it. I've been throwing a lot of shine at Coach Henderson. But let's not forget that Coach Nua was really instrumental in getting Mana's attention coming to USC. Quote, it has to do partially with sharing the same ethnicity. We're both Samoan, so we have connections through the culture. It plays a big role. The Polynesian connection really makes a difference. He knows where I'm coming from, the type of family structure. He understood and was transparent about how he felt about me and how things are going at USC. It's been a really special connection overall, end quote. So this is what USC is getting. 6'5", reported 290 pounds. To me, that screams defensive tackle. He's originally from Northern California, but he's finishing up his high school career in San Diego at the Army and Navy Academy. Now, the first thing I think of when I hear that is discipline, right? You know, he's also going to have a good work ethic. He's naturally strong, and he's got what I saw in the film that I was able to find, violent hands, powerful, and he likes to use them. He's got a really good motor too. Doesn't stop going, and that probably has something to do with his rugby background as well. So he's got some attitude. He's got some grit. I think I spelled dog now. Dog work. Lincoln Riley and the entire coaching staff right now, they're backing up their words. Defense is priority number one. And the depth up front, they're stacking players, talented players. And look, who knows? Now that Michigan's defensive line coach is tagging along with Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers, I don't know, just throwing it out there. Maybe one or more of those guys that's on the Michigan roster, maybe they consider USC in the spring. I say in the spring because even though the Michigan transfer portal window, that supplemental 30-day window is open right now, the problem is it's too late for these guys to enroll for any school that's already started their current semester. So for the time being, USC right now has 21 commits with Mana. And then when the linebacker, Jaden Walker, makes it official, that'll be 22 commitments. Write this down. I'm giving you some numbers here. 13 of those 22 the 22 players that are going to be committed to USC play defense. Of those 13, 7 are designated to play defensive line or linebacker. USC also has 11 transfers signed. 7 of those 11 play defense, and 3 of those play defensive line or linebacker. That's great recruiting, and they're filling their needs. Defensive line, linebacker. They didn't forget the secondary either. So let me break it down for you. Cameron Fountain, Jade Abasiri, Lorenzo Cowan, Carlon Jones. Now you have Mana. They're being joined by Nate Clifton, Vanderbilt, Isaiah Rakes, Texas A&M. So again, just to make sure we're keeping score, 7 new defensive line players are stacking on top of, at least at the moment, USC has 13 guys returning who played defensive line, rush edge last year. That's 20 of an 85-man roster. Okay. Out of 20 guys, I'm feeling good about Coach Henderson and Coach Nua identifying too deep. Maybe they might even be able to go deeper now. We'll find out. Ever been to Vegas? If you're going to Las Vegas for the big game, what would you do with an extra $100? Well, I'm going to tell you. Game time is fast and it's easy, and they have if you like to buy tickets, that's where you need to go, because they have tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all Game Time users are going to get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code Vegas100. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is easy to find and buy tickets. The app shows viewers from all seats in the venue what it's going to look like. And they also have the lowest price guaranteed. And they even have a cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Right now, all Game Time users are going to get $100 off a big game ticket with code Vegas100. Terms do apply. Just download the Game Time app and use code V like Victor, E like Edward, G like Game Time, A, S like Sam, 100, and you're going to get $100 off the big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right. I need you to raise your hand if you don't believe Coach Riley is growing as a head coach. Okay? How many hands went up? He was recently on the Pat McAfee show the other day, and he said the following. At the end of the day, you're defined by championships, and you've got to play elite defense to get it done. We haven't done that in the first 2 years, and I don't hide from that. The defensive staff that we just brought in here is phenomenal. It's not often when a head coach admits he's wrong. So when one does, you give them credit. They've learned. They're trying to learn from their mistakes. Look, I spend a lot of time on the internet, and I can't find anyone to dispute what Coach Lincoln Riley said in that comment. He's 100% correct. In his first 2 years at USC, they have not played elite defense. And you know what? No one asked him to. And no one really anticipated a Lincoln Riley team to play elite defense, based on his coaching history, and not to mention the defensive coordinator he brought along with him. Not to mention the roster he inherited and eventually had to turn over. I've said it 100 times. My everydayers, you know this. With the way USC can score, with Lincoln Riley calling plays, elite defense isn't needed. It would be great, don't get me wrong, but just give us serviceable. Give us a defense that can tackle and make a third down and long stop. Knows which gap they're supposed to fill. And then, Caleb and the offense, they would handle the rest. Well, we're moving forward. Caleb is gone. He's going to the NFL. And Riley now needs a defense to lean on. He doesn't have Caleb anymore. And he needs that defense to lean on just in case Miller Moss doesn't throw 6 touchdown passes per game this season. He had a really good Holiday Bowl against a really good Louisville defense. So, do you believe Coach Riley is serious about defense now? This defensive staff did not come cheap, and they come very well respected by their peers. My everydayers, again, you remember what NFL great DeMarco Farr said about Coach Henderson when he was hired? Quote, USC, you got yourself a winner in dog work, Eric Henderson. He is absolutely tremendous. So if any football player, any parent have a kid on any side of the football, and you want that kid to get better and develop, you go to USC right now. Absolutely. You sign with Eric Henderson. Eric Henderson will coach you through whatever circumstance to get the best out of you. So like I said, happy for USC. I've never said that in my entire life, but USC, are going to be good because of him, end quote. And I need to say it again. DeMarco Farr is a Washington Husky alum. He did not go to UCLA. His brother did, though. So combine that coaching staff that's been assembled and the players that USC is focused on and recruiting. I believe Coach Riley gets it now. Competitive people have egos. So, some know how to look. I'm not one of the best hiding their ego. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Excuse me. Some know how to harness, their ego better than others. Again, I'm not that person. But I do believe that Coach Riley was humbled last year. And losing streaks have a way of doing that to you. But man, watching Pat McAfee saying it over and over and over again, but on the defensive side, though. But on the defensive side, though. But on the defensive side, though. You could see it in Lincoln Riley's face. He was uncomfortable. But he agreed the criticism was fair. And then he went on to say what I quoted. So the fact that he felt a little defensive having to explain last season, a little ironic, but he went out, he made the necessary changes, and excuse me, you think about the situations that some of these guys, the staff that he put together and their situations that they left to come coach at USC. Antonlynn. He was a defensive coordinator at UCLA. And he comes from that Baltimore Ravens coaching tree. And look, he was born with a football in his hand. His father, Anthony Lynn, head coach of the LA Chargers. So, left UCLA, defensive coordinator, said, I would rather be at USC. It cost a lot, but USC got their man. Matt Entz. He gave up being a head coach at one of the top FCS programs in the country to be USC's linebacker assistant head coach on defense. Okay. That's somebody putting their ego behind themselves to do what's good. Doug Belk, again, he gave up his defensive coordinator job at the University of Houston to be USC's secondary coach, assistant head coach on defense. And then Eric Henderson, we know about that. He was the Rams defensive line coach, developer, guru. And Lincoln Riley was also able to retain Shaun. But when I get the chance, I'm going to ask Coach Riley. I'm going to say, hey, do you feel the pressure of having to live up to what Pete Carroll did at USC, even though it was a decade decade plus? And the reason I want to ask him is because Pat mentioned Pete's name and how college football is just better when USC is good. And he was talking about the Pete Carroll era. He's right, Pat remembers that Pete Carroll era and what USC football was able to accomplish. The 34-game win streak, the back-to-back national titles, the chance to play for 3 in a row, 3 Heismans in 5 years. Did I say the 34-game win streak? USC owned college football. They were going into SEC stadiums. They were embarrassing these teams. That's what Pat McAfee remembers. Lincoln Riley remembers that too. So again, I saw his face when Pat brought that up. A little bit of uncomfortable for him, but that's okay. When you're uncomfortable, there's pressure. And when there's pressure, you perform. So we're going to find out. Happy Super Bowl to all of you who are going to celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, yep, Super Bowl is all about getting on the couch, getting a big bowl of chips, a bunch of snacks, some beverages, and being left alone. That way you can enjoy the commercials. And if you have to watch a game with a team you don't like and you know they're going to win, you can say, all right, I'm picking the 49ers over the Kansas City Chiefs to win Super Bowl 58. FanDuel also has some ways for you to end the season with a W or two or maybe three. Not only can you bet on who's going to win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has ways that you can bet. Like if you want to say who's going to score a touchdown, they've got that prop bet. You can pick how many points are going to be scored. You can do that on FanDuel. As well, new customers, join today, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The other day, and I'm really enjoying this segment because I like to find out who the new players are at USC. So the more I get to do a deep dive and peel back the layers, I get to learn about these new recruits, the new members of the Trojan family. The other day, I talked about Joey Olson, the longest tenured commit in USC's 2024 class. He committed to USC, the tight end, back in July of 2022. If you listen to Locked on USC every day, you heard me talk about this yesterday. Well, there is another recruit who's just been taking care of his business in high school, quietly going along, and he doesn't get talked about a lot. But Hayden Treter, he was USC's first offensive line commit in the class. He committed to Josh Henson and Zach Hansen. Those two were his primary recruiters back on June 4th of last year. And he picked USC over Oregon, Colorado, and Tennessee. In fact, I think Tennessee was behind Oregon. It was USC, Oregon, Tennessee. One of my everyday listeners said that Hayden has already added more muscle to his 6'6". He's actually 6'7". He's grown an inch. And he was listed at 270 pounds when he committed to USC. And that was reported by On3. Well, I hear right now he's 6'7", 320 pounds. Big dude, right? And he hasn't even stepped on USC's campus yet. He's not enrolled early. Here's how things work in recruiting. There are times where even a blind squirrel finds a nut, right? Well, USC offensive line coach Josh Henson, he was just kind of rolling through Cherry Creek High School to kind of check off that box, say, yeah, I visited all the top programs in Colorado. Well, Cherry Creek High School is one of the better programs in the state. And I think they're like chasing their fifth straight state title. So again, they have a lot of big time prospects or high players who come through that program. When Hayden spoke with WeAreSC.com's Scott Schrader back in October 2023, he revealed the following. This is his recruiting story. I don't think I'd really talked to him all until he offered me. He's referring to Coach Henson. They came in the morning to watch us work out. It's funny because he was actually late, and I was, oh man, he's not even going to show up. Then he showed up, like he liked what he saw, and we just talked every week after that. End quote. One of USC's best offensive linemen in the last 5 to 10 years was Andrew Voorhees. Big mountain of a man, 6'7", 300 plus pounds. So if Coach Henson wants to compare Hayden to Voorhees, that's a huge, huge compliment. Quote, Coach Henson said I looked like Andrew Voorhees, but with better feet. He also said that I was already further along physically than him at this stage. Right now, it looks like guard is where I'll play. Coach Henson usually likes more athletic guys at guard. People he likes to pull and move around a lot. But it really depends on when I get there. Tennessee had me as a tackle just because they saw I could carry so much weight and all that stuff. So, we'll see, end quote. I was told recently that the USC coaching staff They weren't all that upset when Mater Dei's DeAndre Carter decided to go elsewhere. Because after that, Hayden committed, and they were actually relieved that they were able to get him. So there has to be something. I think there has to be something in the water at Cherry Creek High School. No pun intended. This is the offensive line that Treter is playing with in his senior year in high school. This is pretty amazing. So you got Treter, 6'7", 320 pounds. He's going to USC. You have a young man named Max Parrott, 6'5", 290 pounds, tackle. He's committed to play at Purdue. And you have another tackle, A.J. Burton, 6'5", 275 pounds, who's committed to Iowa State. It's a pretty good offensive line. So working hard is not going to be an issue for Hayden. He's already kind of trained in that dynamic. And in fact, he even talked about it. He said, it's hard at practice. We practice against some of the best players in the state. That's really helped me become a better player. And I also really liked his outlook on dealing with pressure. This is what he had to say. When you have pressure, it means something more than just being an athlete. I know I and all my teammates really look at it as a badge of honor to represent the school and represent what it means to be at Cherry Creek. Well, guess what? That same thing applies when you put on the Cardinal gold at USC. There's a badge of honor that goes along with it. You have to earn those gold plates to put on your helmet during practice. So there it is. That's Hayden Treter, offensive lineman, USC, class of 2024. USC's class is off to, National Signing Day. Got off to a good start. We talked about it at the top of the show. They got another defensive lineman, Ratumana Mana. I'm not going to butcher it. I will get it. I promise. We're going to call him Mana. So we'll see. How many more players is USC going to fill in with their 2024 class? If you watch Locked On USC, you'll find out. So if you liked this episode, I know you did, don't forget, become a subscriber. Hit up YouTube. It's easy. Just click that red subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. It means a lot. And don't forget to hit that bell notification button. That way you will not miss an episode. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of Locked On USC. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.